Councilor Costello.
Thank you, Mayor. Although I acknowledge my colleagues in their position on this particular issue, the city still has to function. And as Chair of Budget and Fiscal Affairs, I totally disagree with the assessment of Councilmember Pennington and what you're saying, and Councilmember Sullivan. The city has to move forward. We have a lot of problems with this particular issue. The fact that we're going to be selling bonds, and if you look at the debt structure of the city in the future, we'll be moving further and further down the debt structure in terms of average lifespan. I think this is a good issue. It's something that we're asking the general public to do. I want to remind everyone that historically the city has sold bond issues every 5 or 6 years and varying between $500 and $800 million. This is the first time we're going to be selling bonds at a significant amount less, covering the same type of facilities, only because of Rebuild Houston. And Councilmember, and I appreciate what you're saying about the drainage fee. I don't think you spent enough time looking at what Public Works has done to implement this program. When we passed the drainage fee, we also passed the pay-as-you-go program. You neglect to say that this is prudent fiscal policy, and it's a good thing to do. This particular issue is one where we're offering the public the opportunity to decide if they want to do this. We are identifying the needs that we have in the city, and we have needs throughout the entire city. This is just a small portion of the problem that we're trying to solve. And Councilmember Pennington, the oversight committee, I mean, in terms of the long-range financial management task force that we did, there were a number of assumptions that were presented in that particular analysis that we asked the finance department to produce. Some of those assumptions have already been invalidated just based on this past year. The simple fact that we have more sales tax revenue than we ever had prior to that. I don't disagree that we have systemic structural problems in terms of pension reform and in terms of our health care benefits that we have to face. And that's something that we should do right away. But we should not stop government, and we should not stop providing facilities that are needed in the city right now today. And so I'm all in favor of this particular program, and I encourage everyone in November to vote for it. Thank you.
Councilor Brown.
Thank you, Mayor. The state of affairs in the city of Houston is not a case of chicken little. It's a situation like a hole in the wall of a dam that's cracking. Houston is broke. Combining both the unfunded liability of the city's pension plans of over $4.5 billion and its current accumulated deficit of $2.5 billion, Houston is upside down for $7 billion, which is almost half the total debt of the entire state of California. $410 million of debt will only sink the city deeper. Certain questions must be asked. What kind of firm would underwrite these bonds? What investment advisor would violate his fiduciary responsibility and recommend anyone buy these bonds? What investor having proper disclosed information would buy these bonds? Cities and municipalities across the nation are filing bankruptcy. Jefferson County, Harrisburg, San Bernardino, Mammoth Lake, Stockton, Central Falls, for outstanding debt and pension liabilities to the tune of 21 million to as much as $4 billion. But that's nothing compared to the city of Houston's $7 billion. We cannot stand by and allow the fourth largest city of the nation, one of the most prosperous cities of America, to suffer bankruptcy because of inaction or this type of action. The city has maxed out all of their credit cards, borrowed against all of their equity, and now we're going to ask the taxpayers to underwrite another $410 million notes. I, for one, will not participate in any way in further undermining the financial state of affairs of the city of Houston. So I'll be going now. Thank you.
Information for the record, all of our debt is A or AA rated. We have had no trouble selling our bonds. Mayor Pro Tem Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, I'm supporting this item. As you stated, it's the lowest bond measure that's being put forward in more than 30 years. I like the fact that it leverages over $100 million of private funds for the Bayou Greenways project that will span more than 7 waterways around our city, that will connect neighborhoods, that will really enhance the quality of life and really made neighborhoods much stronger, and I think that's important. We need to make sure that, you know, we continue to move our city forward, that we continue to provide things for the next generation as well, for our children to be able to benefit from these projects, just like we have benefited from many works from previous generations, such as Memorial Park, Urban Park, our water system. A lot of investments, heavy investments that were done long ago, that we reap the benefits of those today. And I think the parks are very significant. I've seen the list that you've proposed, Mayor, and in there are very reasonable and very much needed items, like expansion of fire stations, improvements to neighborhood police stations citywide that impact neighborhoods. Very important for our neighborhoods to have a strong police presence out in their communities. The capital improvements to some of the buildings, our City Hall and City Hall Annex don't fall into any typical CIP district plan, so we need to make sure that we're funding that. Deferred maintenance becomes very costly, and whether we choose to address them or not, they will have to be addressed by someone, and those costs will only become much more bigger, similar to our own homes. If we're not replacing the roof every 10, 15 years, then we're gonna have serious problems with leakages and much more costly repairs. So those repairs need to be done. This helps address that. There's replacement for libraries out in the community as well, all throughout the city, all throughout the different districts. Ball field lighting upgrades, a lot of needs that go on throughout our city. So it addresses a lot of issues. As you stated, Mayor, revenues must continue to go up in order for us to continue to take that debt. But I think this is reasonable for our voters to consider and decide if they want to see this measure be successful or not. If they choose that they don't want this and feel that the economic climate doesn't bear passage to this, then they will vote accordingly. If not, then they obviously share in the same vision and want to see a better, greener Houston for the future. So I'm supporting this. Thank you.
Councilmember Gonzalez, you mentioned the items on the repair list. There was a reference made earlier to the secret facilities assessments, but that has been made available to council members, and clearly you are aware of what's in the assessment, and I hope that all council members took advantage of the opportunity to read it in detail. Chair recognizes Vice Mayor Pro Tem Bradford.
Thank you, Mayor. I have made a request that the building assessment report be modified to include at least a version that was sterile, so that for public use. It's kind of difficult to base a bond package on buildings and facilities that the public doesn't have access to, at least the condition that they're in, without describing areas that would breach security, et cetera, et cetera. To my knowledge, that has not been done, and no one has commented regarding such. I thought that was a very reasonable request. Additionally, I've heard it said that we should let the citizens get involved, let the voters decide. We can do that, but it seems on one hand we want to pass it to the voters and let the voters decide. And I see Mr. Kubash in the audience today. When it comes to feeding the needy, we don't want to pass that on to the voters and let voters decide that issue. I think maybe we should have it one way or the other. It's interesting to me also that as an at-large council person, the last cycle and this cycle, I attended almost all of the CIP meetings, and at-large council people have no input into the CIP process, because we're told that this is worked through the district council people. At least that's what I'm told. And that being the case, I'm listening to district council people indicate they've had no input into this process. One said directly on the record, Councilor Sullivan, that he's had no input into this particular process. Well, if the district council people are not having input into the process, I can say this if a large person didn't. There's a concern that I have about the process, as Councilor Pennington has mentioned about the process. Now, no one is opposed around this table to public safety issues and even park improvements, etc., that type of thing. The bikeways, green paths, and all of that. I support all of that. Those are public safety enhancement initiatives. But the question becomes input into the process and the $410 million. And Mayor, this is spending. I mean, I heard you say this is authorization to spend if voters were to approve it, but we know in actuality, this is spending it. If the voters approve, if it goes on the ballot, the voters approve it in November, this money's spent. It's gone. It's debt incurred. The mayor, the council will spend this money, no doubt about that. And I don't see an issue I think that's critically important in this package. That's the 8-leaf library, and I'm going to keep hammering that, because the 8-leaf library is second in usage to the library across the street here. They run after-school programs out there. They're bursting at the seam. They don't have a multi-purpose center there. That library needs to be built, and we're not addressing that. That's not in this package. So I question the priority of some of the things that are in the package, and truly would have liked to have had an opportunity for all the district council person and this at-large person I can speak for to have input into the process more globally. It was rolled out, and I started asking questions about who had had input into the process. And I'll save the glamour of asking those to show of hands around the table who's had input into the process, because I've done it informally already. And I can tell you that a very small number of council members responded to me when I asked them who had input into the $410 million process. Not that it's bad, not that it's improper, but process is important. And as council members, we're asked and expected to be able to explain it, define it, defend it, campaign for it, vote it, and support it. That's what's expected of us as council members. Yet and behold, we've not had the opportunity to have substantive input. The deal was rolled out. This is what it is. Now, we can vote it up or down, no doubt about that. And we understand all the city's obligations and the long-range financial plan, meeting, etc. Having said that, I'm sitting here now wondering whether the best thing to do is to put it on the ballot, because I do believe at the end of the day, the voters should control. So I am more likely to err in the way of passing on to the voters and letting the voters make the decision, like the red light cameras and the feeding the hungry ordinance, I believe should do. Thank you, Mayor.
I do think it's important to remind council members that when this item was presented a month ago, I indicated that the $410 million was the starting point, because we looked at what our debt capacity was and worked back from there. It does not address the majority of the needs, the capital needs across the city of Houston. It is what was affordable to the city of Houston. We also indicated at that time that it would support the existing CIP, much of which is unfunded, that it would go to the critical facilities assessment needs, which has been made available to all council members, and then the rest of the money was undefined pending the normal CIP process, so that every council member would have an opportunity to go through the public hearings, and that we would not add projects in an ad hoc manner, but that we would work through the existing process. I just want to remind everybody of that, those comments made at the previous meeting. Chair recognizes Councilmember Adams.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, I just wanted to thank you, because I can say some of the communication that I've had, because one of my biggest questions was about the existing CIP, and I want to thank you for clarifying that, because under this particular fund, and some of these has been under the parks and under health, there's been some, like the Sunnyside Multi-Service Center and the Sunnyside